Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Voices for Change 2.0, the only podcast that focuses on mental health while mixing in movies, music, books, sports, and pop culture. Here are your hosts, Rebecca and Joe Lombardo.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Voices for Change 2.0. We are glad that you are spending your Saturday morning with us.
Yes, good morning. Thanks for being with us. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to listen to us and what we're talking about today.
Before we get into what we're talking about today, I just want to go a little bit personal here. I just had an experience that Joe and I we see it quite frequently, and it's just something that really grinds my gears, as Peter Griffin would say.
Yeah.
I was just having a channel on the TV. Just
tell them what channel it was.
It's Lifetime Network.
Mm-hmm.
And just because it's a movie I'd seen before, and I was just having something on until we were going to go on the air. And it was something like one of my sister's worst nightmare or some crap like that. But so the sister comes back to live with the other sister, and the one sister has to explain to her husband why everything is so secretive about the other sister. And the other sister was bipolar and borderline personality disorder, and she just happened to murder her husband.
Yep.
And this is something that we're seeing far too much. Hollywood is relying on mental illness to, make their stories seem credible, when you don't have to do that. You don't have to say that somebody has a mental illness. You don't have to have one to kill somebody.
Yeah.
As horrible as that sounds.
It's ridiculous that, in a day and age where we're trying to battle stigma left and right, and you've got, actors and, other Hollywood types that come out and talk against stigma, there's still so much of it perpetrated in the media, in movies, made for TV movies and television shows, and big screen blockbuster movies and all that. It's like one hand doesn't know what the other one's doing kind of thing, but it's not that. It's something worse, because they know what they're doing, and it for every bit that we talk about getting past the stigma and doing, helping each other out and having a compassionate voice and caring for each other, you've got this type of stuff, that's occurring, on screen, and that's a hard thing to battle.
And people don't understand what bipolar disorder is, or borderline personality disorder. They don't know anybody that has it. They think that, that's the thing of it, that, bipolar people kill people.
Yeah, I can't get involved with this person because they'll kill me.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I can unequivocally state I've been married to a person suffering from these things for the last 16 years, and I have never once felt in threat of my life, and I'm offended by it, Yeah.
Well, look, we just wanted to drop that.
Yeah, getting off our soapbox.
Yeah. Just wanted to fill you in on that little experience, and I know that there's others that are listening that have had that same experience. We have friends with DID who have had to, experience things like that movie Split,
mm-hmm.
Which is wholly inaccurate, just all sorts of things like that. So, we'll stop talking about it now, but just that's why we're here, and that's kind of why our guest is here too. She's an advocate for ending the stigma around mental health.
Nice segue.
She is someone that I've grown to admire over time. She's an amazing writer and, like I said, a mental health advocate. Sarah Shuster is the head of the mental health section of the website The Mighty, which is a fantastic website. If you've never visited it, I would highly recommend it. It's one of the top websites on the web, especially for mental health.
Yep.
So please welcome Sarah Shuster.
Oh, hi, guys.
Hey, Sarah. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. And Rebecca, thank you for bringing that up right off the bat. I'm glad that you shared that because I can't imagine what it's like to experience that and then have to just hop on a radio show. It's really cool that you get to kind of be honest with everyone about that. Cause I'm sure that's not something you can just shake off very easily.
Yeah, that's the thing is we try and keep things honest around here, and we're not afraid to shed a light where it needs to be shed. Or shown, or whatever the term would be.
Absolutely.
I'm still waking up.
we both actually, I got up at 6:30 today, which
wow.
I know Scott, our producer, is probably passing out right now just at the thought of hearing that I got up at 6:30.
Yeah.
I had to. The cat wanted to eat, and she was climbing on Joe, and I wanted to let him sleep, so and then I couldn't go back to sleep after that. So after we're done with the show, guess what I'm doing?
Yep.
Nap. We'll all take a group nap together. It'll be very nice. That's how we'll reward ourselves.
Sounds like a plan.
So before we go ahead, do you have anything, any questions for us or anything like that?
No. I think I'm ready.
Okay. Well, we're going to jump right in then. Before you got started with the Mighty, were you ever diagnosed with any mental health conditions?
Oh, great question. So you know what? I actually hadn't. And it's funny that you started with that because for a while, that was definitely a pain point for me, feeling like if I was the right person to lead this community. I actually, at that point when I got the job or the mental health section at the Mighty, I was very much kind of just starting my personal journey, kind of figuring out my own mental health. And I actually have been for a while more of an advocate as a sibling because my brother, when I was a senior in high school, was hospitalized very suddenly for feeling very suicidal. And he ended up getting diagnosed with OCD and depression. And so what's funny about my story is that I actually started out considering myself a loved one of someone with a mental illness. And actually something that I try to talk about, because I think that other siblings feel the same way, is that when you're a sibling of someone with a mental illness who's been hospitalized, who's, whatever, he was in and out of treatment centers all throughout my college years, it's really easy to dismiss your own mental health for a few reasons, right? There's the fact that I felt like, this is my little brother. He's not that much younger than me, maybe a year. But I was the oldest, and I felt like because there was so much going on with him, I just had to be okay, right? I was okay.
Right.
I was always the one that was going to be okay. And for a while, the school environment was very good for me because I kept myself very busy. But every time I would experience a panic attack, or every time I would feel depressed, or any time I would kind of have these symptoms, it was never bad enough, right? And I think a lot of people, again, not just siblings, but people who maybe are in the mental health system, but a lot of people, that's their experience, right? You're experiencing these things, and they're not bad enough, but essentially it did get bad enough that I was starting to have suicidal thoughts, and that was kind of the trigger for me when I was like, okay, this is why do I have these thoughts? Why is this going through my head? And I got scared, and I ended up confiding in someone who convinced me to go to the counseling center. And so at the point when I got hired by the Mighty, I actually had written about my experience going to the counseling center, but I still had not received an official diagnosis, and it wasn't until I moved to Los Angeles. And, I mean, I'll say I was working at the Mighty. My first job after school, I was stressed. I was very stressed. Obviously, we know that that's a trigger for maybe some underlying things that are brewing. And I actually had a really tough first year in Los Angeles, and that's when I finally was like, okay, what am I doing? I'm running a mental health section at the Mighty. I'm still pretending like I'm only a sibling of someone with mental illness, and I'm like not acknowledging my own personal issues. And finally, really with the encouragement of my boyfriend, I got into a psychiatrist. I'm finally in therapy regularly, and through that process, I've been given a diagnosis. So on a chart somewhere, it says that I have GAD. I mean, my psychiatrist has diagnosed me with OCD, but I don't necessarily identify with having OCD. OCD is a very big spectrum, and my anxieties definitely exist in OCD land. But I would say that what I struggle with the most is anxiety and depression, just like reoccurring mild depression, and that's kind of where I'm at. But it's funny you started with that, because for a while it was funny. There was two things. There was the fact that I would be self-conscious that I didn't have a mental health diagnosis, and like I was a fraud for running the site. But those thoughts were actually fueling my negative thoughts about myself already, which was like all because of whatever, depression, anxiety. So that's where I'm at right now. But it wasn't until it was really like a year into the Mighty that I finally kind of pursued that. And now I'm on medication. It's helped a lot. And I'm like, okay, I'm kind of being more comfortable kind of, talking about myself and acknowledging that, just because I'm not maybe quote unquote as bad as my brother, like I've never been hospitalized. I can still kind of talk about my own mental health. And that's where I am right now. It's like a pretty good place to be. And I think it has a lot to do with my age, because I think so I'm 24. And a lot is kind of like prime time.
Again.
Oh, yes. It's kind of prime time, I think. So it's funny how I almost like got into the game like early, which I feel like is very lucky, because I actually don't even know if I would have pursued a diagnosis, or I would be taking SSRIs, which really helped me out right now, if I hadn't kind of been so ingrained in the mental health world anyway. So that's like a really long way to answer your question, because it's a little complicated. No, I wasn't diagnosed before I started working at the Mighty, and since then have been a little more involved in taking care of my own mental health, which has been a positive thing for sure.
You said they diagnosed you with GAD. That's, for those that don't know, generalized anxiety disorder.
Yeah. It's like on an insurance chart somewhere.
Yeah, I've got that on a chart somewhere too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good that you were self-aware enough to seek out treatment, and it's hard, because you especially when you have a loved one that is suffering and going through it, you do kind of put how you're feeling and what you're going through on the back burner, and all your focus is on them. Yeah. And before you know it, things are kind of falling apart for you, and you're like, oh my God, I'm thinking of suicide. What's going on here? And
yeah.
I get that. I mean, like I mentioned before, Beck and I have been together 16 years, and I've been with her on her journey, and I've done similar things in the past where I've kind of disregarded my own health because I was concerned about what's going on with her. And you have to be able to take a step back, no matter how you feel about your loved ones going through things. You have to be able to stop and say, all right, I need to do an assessment of myself and see what I'm going through. Do I need to talk with somebody? Am I going through something as well? And then, actually seeking out the help,
Yeah.
So So good on you for doing that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And you know what's funny? And I can look back now. It's obviously easier said than done. But as far as people who have whatever family members or loved ones who are living with mental illness, even if you don't have a mental illness, it's okay to be in counseling, right? You don't need to be able to be diagnosed with anything to be in counseling for any kind of family dynamic stuff, right? Because it's not even the fact that my brother had a mental illness per se. It was the fact that because he was in and out of hospitals, because he was struggling so much, it was that my family changed, right? You know, my relationship with my mom changed, relationship with my dad changed. Everything is kind of different after an event that happens. And so mental illness or not, I probably just should have been in counseling so I could talk to someone about it, because I really didn't feel like I could talk to my parents. I wasn't talking to my friends. So you don't have to have, you know, even a mental illness to be taking advantage of, you know, of mental health services if there's anything going on in your life. You know, that was another thing that I wish I knew, because I think I would have been in counseling sooner if I didn't feel like, you know, if I didn't think I had to bury everything down while this was all happening.
Right.
Yeah. You know, with counseling, you know, it helps to have somebody to talk to that isn't, you know, necessarily a friend. I mean, obviously, as you're talking to a therapist or a counselor, they become a friend over time as well. But you know, to having that objective ear, you know, that's not involved, because talking to friends or family about stuff that's going on, you know, sometimes they have a certain point of view that they look at the world through, and sometimes that can be beneficial, and sometimes it can be detrimental. You know,
you need sort of an outside person,
right?
That can right in the middle of it all.
That can look at the whole big picture and say, oh, okay, well, this is what's going on, and this is why you feel this way, and all that. You know, as opposed to the person you're talking to, your friend or whatever, just plain not getting it and saying stuff like, well, why can't they just be happy? You know, or you know, trying to come at it from, say, you're not religious, but the person you're talking to is religious, and they're putting it through that prism, and, you know, different things like that, you know. So I'm going to get to the next written down question that we have, because I have a tendency to ramble. Sarah, how did you get involved with the Mighty?
So I alluded to this a little bit, but I actually started out as a contributor myself. I happen to be really lucky that the woman, Megan Griffo, who's the editor-in-chief of the Mighty, actually went to the same college, and we were not friends. Yeah, it's very much like a very lucky connection. We weren't friends, but I think she was like this feature editor on a publication when I was like the freshman intern. Like we were far apart in kind of classes, but we happened to have that one kind of interaction, and we became friends on Facebook, right? So fast forward a few years later, when I did end up getting involved in my school's Active Minds my senior year of college. And I started an Active Minds blog because it's funny, before, you know, I was really involved with the Mighty, I knew that for me personally, writing was going to be the only way I talked about what I was going through, because that's always been my kind of natural way of expressing myself. Talking can be hard, and writing's always been easier. So I actually ended up writing this, and coming out's a strong word, but almost as like coming out blog about using the counseling services, because at the time I was using the counseling service. This was my senior, maybe my second semester, junior year, first semester, senior year, I was in counseling. I totally, like, classic stigma shame, would tell my roommates I was going to the gym and dress like I was going to the gym and, like, sneak to the counseling center. And I don't know, and this was, I went to Syracuse University, and the counseling center is on this block where there's all these like fraternity and sorority houses, which like seems like a silly like note, but it's just so like, it's so, looking back, it's so silly how embarrassed I was to walk. Like God forbid someone saw me walking in, right? So for a while it was just very like sneaky counseling center user, and I ended up writing a blog, kind of like literally coming out about it and saying like, listen, because in college, I mean, it's so funny to look back now. I've always been a very sensitive person, but in college I did like comedy writing. I was so like not in touch with mental health at all, and so I pretty much wrote in this blog like, listen, like, you know me as like this like comedy person, you know, and I'm very busy, I'm very social, but like I use the counseling center, and I basically want to say like, you know, and if you are too, like, why are we not talking about it? Like, who else is using the counseling center? Like, let's not be so ashamed. And so I wrote this blog post, and it ended up, and I posted it on Facebook, and Meg saw it and literally Facebook inboxed me and said, do you mind if I publish this on like the site called The Mighty? And I was like, yeah, go for it. And so that's really how it began. And I did write for them a few more times after that. And I graduated from college, kind of kept up with Meg, and they actually brought me on originally as a contributor editor. So I was just editing general stories all across the board. And eventually they asked me to run the mental health section, and I was what they called a big editor because at the Mighty, you know, we don't just cover mental health, we cover chronic illnesses, we cover disabilities, and eventually what we want to do, and we're still, you know, growing and developing, but eventually what we want to do is have almost these like beat editors for every section. So I was pretty much the guinea pig beat editor, where I was like, what's going to happen if we give one person in charge of mental health and just like see what they do with it. So that was me, and I've been doing it for 2 years. And now we have a chronic illness editor, now we have a cancer editor, we have a disability editor, and so that we're kind of hoping to continue that model across all the sections. But that was really how I got involved, was through writing, through keeping in touch with the people on staff, because at the time it was a very small staff. We're still a small staff, but it is even tinier. And the timing just worked out that I happened to be looking for a job, and I had a journalism degree. And I was like, all right, let's go. So that's how I ended up where I am now.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
You know,
cool.
and also speaks to how important networking is.
Yeah.
No, and I you know what's so funny? I always like to bring up the fact that I went to school with the editor-in-chief because I don't want to pretend that didn't help me, right? And it's hilarious because I was such a cynical journalism student, and when they told us that networking, I was always the one rolling my eyes like, I don't want to have to network. I want to get a job from just like pure skill, and then I ended up getting a job because I knew someone on
networking.
Facebook.
Yeah.
So there you go, networking. It's not so bad. It might get you a job. That's my message to any recent college grad.
That's a good message to take us to break. We've got to stop here for just a couple of minutes. We'll be listening to Levi Christ, So Much Better. We'll talk to you in a few.
Ooh, roll the top down. Let's take an afternoon drive. I've been working too hard. I want to leave it all behind me. Pushing and pulling, yeah, the world keeps spinning around and around. But I go with the flow, nobody gonna get me down. You see, I tell you the secret about the way that love's gonna be. It's a super sexy, conscious, cosmological ecstasy. Getting hold of me, and it's so much better, so much better now. Baby, love, don't you know that it's so much better now. And it feels good to let it go. Yeah. I want you to stop and take a look around. Let your body unwind. You ecstasy. You got everything you want. You just gotta open up your eyes and sing it. Holding over something when there's nothing that you can do to change it. Just let it go with the flow. Get about your business doing you. Say I tell you a little secret how to make it on history. It's a super sexy, conscious, cosmological ecstasy. It's getting hold of me. It's so much better, so much better now. Baby love, don't you know that it's so much better now. It feels good to let it go. And it's so much better now. Baby love, don't you know that it's so much better now. And it feels good to let it go. Yeah, it feels good to let it go. Yeah, see, I tell you a little secret how to make it on easy street. It's a super sexy, conscious, cosmological ecstasy. Get it hold of me. And it's so much better now. Baby love, don't you know that it's so much better now. It feels good to let it go. And it's so much better now. Baby love, don't you know that it's so much better now. Said it feels good to let it go. Oh, it feels good to let it go.
Hey, welcome back to Voices for Change 2.0. I'm Joe. This is Rebecca sitting next to me. And if you're just tuning in, we are talking with the wonderful Sarah Shuster of The Mighty. Thanks for being with us, Sarah.
Hi, happy to be here.
Yay.
And one thing we'd like to just bring up, we've got a couple of folks that have been calling and also in our chat room. If you're on the Blog Talk site, there underneath the scrolling box of photos, there is a chat room. So you can go in there and interact with others while you're listening to the show. So, and don't forget, you can tweet to us on Twitter. I have it up now, using hashtag VFChange. So just wanted to get that in there before we continued on. So
Yep.
Let's get back into the swing of things here with Sarah. And your turn, honey.
No, that was your turn.
Oh, is it my turn? Okay.
It is your turn, yes.
All right. So for our listeners that don't know what the Mighty is, can you sort of give them a little bit of a breakdown of exactly what they do?
Yeah. So I started, the Mighty is funny because we've been changing a lot since I've been there at least. But my current definition of the Mighty is that we're a storytelling community who helps people with mental illnesses, chronic illnesses, different disabilities kind of tell their stories. And something that I like to say, and I've said this a few times before, but I see the purpose of the Mighty. We're pretty much trying to be a very human, story-based place that people can find when they're looking for information or when they're searching online for stuff about their own mental health or their own experiences. For example, if you Google, I just got diagnosed with, let's just say, like anxiety. Maybe I just got diagnosed with an anxiety disorder. if I Google that, maybe I hit a nonprofit, maybe I hit WebMD, but we want to be a place where if you search that, you can actually find a story called, like, What Happened When I Got Diagnosed with Anxiety. And you get to click into that story, and all of a sudden you're in this, like, portal of all these first-person perspectives. And so instead of just finding, a fact sheet or a list of symptoms, you actually can read someone's personal story and realize that you're not the only one going through what you're going through, and that you're not just a list of symptoms, but that there are many people whose experiences are different than you or the same to you. We basically want to give people that kind of very human side of whatever they're going through. And right now we mostly distribute stories via social media, but we're actually working on the Mighty itself to be more of, I would say, like a platform where you can publish your story, but you can also ask other people questions. You can also maybe start, your own chat room. We basically want to be a place where people can connect based on their common experiences. And the kind of our bread and butter right now are the stories that we publish. So we look like a publication, but I think we're trying to be more of an online community where people can go to connect with people, and that's kind of the next iteration of the Mighty will be that. But right now, we're really just focused on the stories that we publish and kind of making sure people see them and need to read them.
Awesome.
Yeah,
That's
sounds
what we
great.
are. Yeah.
Yay.
Well, we've got a caller on the line
Oh,
that we would all love to talk to. Can we bring in Mr. Rudy?
Rudy.
Hello.
Oh, my
Hi,
goodness.
Sarah. How are you doing?
Hi,
Rudy.
I am good.
Yes, I am so not a morning person, so you're pretty lucky.
I'm so honored that you woke up to call me right now. It's like really nice to hear your voice.
Yes, I'm pretty woke. So my question to you, Ms. Shuster, is that
I know it's not going to be an easy one. You're not going to give me a softball question.
Yeah, you mentioned a little bit about the future of the Mighty, and I wanted to know if you see a time where you no longer with the Mighty, but any ideas for the future, or when do you see yourself moving beyond the Mighty?
Oh, me personally?
Yeah.
Oh God.
Or
okay.
me.
Yeah, that's a good question because obviously I probably won't get the Mighty forever. So what I, Sarah Shuster, the person, would like to do. Kind of when the Mighty is ready for me to leave. I really want to be a journalist. I want to write more. I do get opportunities to write at the Mighty, and they've been wanting me to write more, which has been really cool. But I really want to be a journalist in the mental health space, but I want to be the person who's writing the stories that aren't being told yet. And right now I'm kind of setting myself up to have all these like wonderful connections so that when I do kind of maybe eventually go full writer mode and just freelance or, I don't know, do whatever I end up doing, I'll be able to write kind of long, important, interesting pieces about what's going on in the mental health world, because I think that, and part of the Mighty is also a response to this. And actually, Rebecca, what you mentioned this morning, media just does a poor job representing mental illness. It does a bad job talking about it. There's been a few great pieces that have come out of journalism that have come out this past year even that kind of explore kind of more interesting quarters of what's going on in like our mental health system. But I think that there are a lot of different voices in the mental health community all kind of saying different things, and I want to be someone who almost like gets to take that all together and like translate it for the general public and be writing stories for the mental health community, about the mental health community, that hopefully kind of explore cool topics. Yeah, that was a little rambly, but I'm definitely like a baby writer at heart. Like if you ask me what I want to do, like when I was like 18, I'd be like, I want to write books. Like I really writing has always been like kind of where my heart's at, and I like managing the Mighty community. I really like my job right now, but my strengths are definitely I feel, and also what I love to do the most is definitely when I get to kind of write a piece. So that's what I think I'll do when the Mighty's done. But I mean, I definitely feel like I feel very. I feel like the mental health community is kind of like my baby. You know, when you start something, and you
Right.
want to like make sure it's kind of like self-sufficient before you leave. That's kind of how I feel about the mental health section. I thought there's a lot of potential.
Would that make you
and I
my
just
mom?
want to. Rudy, I think I might be your mom. I think this is where I
she's
tell Rudy
24.
that I'm
There's
his
something
mother.
disturbing about that.
She's 24, Rudy. Come on, man.
But I want to make sure that my baby. I'm sticking with the metaphor now. I want to make sure that my baby is kind of like self-sufficient and good to go before I leave. So I don't see myself moving on anytime soon. But when it's time, I feel like I'll know. I feel like it's one of those things when I'll know. But thanks for asking, Rudy.
Of course. And I will see you soon, and say hello to Grippo for me.
I will.
All right, thanks for calling in, Rudy.
Thanks for calling in, Rudy. We love you, buddy, and it was good hearing your voice.
Of course. Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.
Yep, you too.
Hi.
One quick note here on our Twitter page. We have a message for Sarah from Peter M. Olson. He says he says that you are totally awesome. So
thank you, Peter.
Had to get that
totally
in there.
Awesome. I got to meet Peter. I think it was maybe it's like 2 months ago now. He's a good guy. He's awesome too.
Yeah, he's
another
a sweet
good
guy.
writer. Another good writer.
Yeah. So, yeah, you were talking about how media is kind of handling things, and it got me thinking. It's tragic when the most we get of a discussion about mental health comes whenever we have somebody well known take their own life.
Yeah.
That's upsetting.
Yeah.
When it's
Yes.
Chester Bennington or Chris Cornell, or on Facebook you get the memory thing that pops up on this day 8 years ago or whatever, and just noticing the last couple of days it's been stuff from 3 years ago when Robin Williams passed.
Robin Williams died, yeah.
And it's just it's there needs to be more. It can't be reactionary anymore. It's got to be. We got to start being proactive about talking about it and raising the awareness and getting out there.
The thing is that I think that we've been at this point in time. If you follow anybody in the mental health community on Twitter or Facebook, we're all doing a good job at talking about it and bringing it to the forefront so that people start to understand. It's that now we are in the position that we have to start taking action, and we've spent so much time, on fighting the stigma, with writing and with the online communities, that we need some insight into actually doing things, and that's why things like the NAMI walks and that kind of stuff are really good. And we had on Ryan Hampton, who has actually been to Congress to talk about addiction.
Yes.
And just we've really got to get more people like that out there, and but I think we're doing a good job, and I think we're starting to make a dent in the stigma. I mean, what I talked about this morning is kind of ridiculous, and it comes up here and there, but it comes up less
Mm-hmm.
I won't lie about that. It's frustrating, but it still does come up less. And I don't notice as much of the, oh my God, you're so bipolar kind of crap that we used to hear all the time, and things like that. So, like I said, I think we're starting to make a dent in the stigma. It's just that now we have to, keep digging and take actual action.
Yeah. I think the Titanic is finally starting to turn around the iceberg a little bit.
Yeah, you can't see Rebecca, but I'm like nodding my head. Like that's so perfect, and that's something that I think a lot about too. I think a lot about the anti-stigma chatter and how it's so good and how it's so not enough. And again, like we're at almost the same Twitterverse where there's a lot of people talking and it's so good, but something that I worry about is that it's kind of like we're almost like have created this like our own little bubble of like a safe place online, which is good. We deserve that place. We need a place to talk about it in a safe way. But what you said, action. What do we do when breaking the stigma isn't enough? And now that we have all of these people, if there was some way to kind of like organize, like, and that's what I'm so fascinated. I think again, a lot of people talking about stigma, telling their story, it's all so good. But like, what do you want to change the mental health system? Like, what do you want to change? Like, specifically about, because again, the ultimate goal is for people to feel good, right? And for people to kind of like be able to live their lives, and what's actually preventing them from doing that, that's the stuff that I'm really interested in, like getting into the nitty gritty of need. And it's so hard because the mental health system varies so much from state to state. As a Mighty, we have people who have just like even the simple, just take one thing like hospitalization. We have people who have really great experiences and they're so thankful they were hospitalized. We have people who are traumatized because of their hospitalization, and how is that acceptable? And when we're trying to break the stigma, we can't forget to like get more specific, and we can't forget to say like, yes, like how do we? And I think a lot of advocates are afraid to acknowledge kind of the kind of like the messiness and the kind of some of the bad things the mental health system has done right too, right? Because you want to like lead people to help, and of course you don't want to discourage anyone from getting help. But if we're leading them to help and then they don't get help, that kind of turns people away, So yeah, that's what he said was perfect. It's stuff I think about all the time. Like, how do we make our messages more specific? How do we and how do we do that when it varies so much by state to state and the quality of care is so different? Like, where do we start? It's daunting, but it's exciting because, like you said, we have a lot of momentum. We have a lot of people who are interested and who are talking about it. It's just like I think it's almost like the next challenge of people who consider themselves mental health advocates or whatever you want to call yourself, is to kind of get a little more specific, and that makes me excited because I think it's like almost time. You can almost like feel it. So it's funny that you said that because I'm getting the same echo from other people. It's like it's time. Like everyone kind of knows it's time that the stigma thing is good, but it's like time for something else, So that's the stuff that makes me like really pumped.
There's actually two things I got from all that. I got two thoughts. One of them is, as far as organizing, I look at, we mentioned Ryan Hampton. I look at what he's been doing with addiction, and it's inspiring because of the movement that he's got going and they've got going on over there. And I think, well, why can't we do something similar? And I think I might actually reach out to him at some point and try and get some advice. Because
I'm sure
I think
he'd be happy to give it.
Yeah, because I think that's the next step. But the other thing that I wanted to mention, I got thinking about this because you said something that made me think is, we're encouraging people to get help if they need it, and what happens when they go and get help and it's horrible help? You mentioned it's different from state to state, and some people will go and get hospitalized and they'll get help and it's great and it helps them and it's beneficial. But what about, like, I think of what Beck went through 4 years ago when she was hospitalized, and she had a terrible experience, and she's traumatized from it.
I'm sorry,
you know,
Rebecca.
she detailed that in her book, and there are people that go through the same thing, and it's no wonder that for as many people that reach out and get help, and it's a positive experience for them, how many others are reaching out to get help and they get it and it's terrible. It's bottom of the barrel. It's a cattle stampede. They're not.
They treat you like a number on a file.
Right. You're not treated with respect and dignity. You're treated like less than human. And that's part of breaking the stigma as well. And that's something else that needs light shed on it.
Absolutely. I mean, it's not only just different from state to state, it's different from city to city.
And county to county, yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Really quickly before we move on, I want to just get this in. We were talking about getting specific. Excuse me. Sarah, Peter Olson has a question for you. Tacos or burritos?
Okay, great question. Since I've moved to LA, I've definitely been consuming more tacos and burritos. And I'll have to say, I think I'm more of a burrito person. I really like tacos, but burrito is like all you need in one, like, simple package. So I'll go with the burritos. Thank you for asking, Peter.
Yeah,
so I'm glad we got the importance.
We really appreciate that
feedback.
Peter.
Inquiring minds want to know.
Hey, you know what? We are just really excited that anybody is, interacting with us.
Yeah. We'll take a taco or burrito question.
Absolutely.
That might be the we have to ask.
Are you guys taco or burrito people? How about you?
At this point,
tacos.
If we have any of it at all, it's tacos because
it's tacos. Okay.
A special carb.
We're trying
diet,
to keep things.
So.
We're trying to keep things low carb, and one taco from Taco Bell is 12 grams of carbs. Thank you very much. Thank you, Taco. It's not a commercial or endorsement. I just haven't researched any of the other taco chains to see where their carb count is at.
There's one around us, but
right. But yes, right now it's tacos. I do enjoy a good burrito.
We enjoy other things. We just can't have them. So
yeah.
But we're not gonna play that song. We'll skip the whole discussion about our diets and whatnot, but
next time.
Yeah. So Sarah, I'm proud to say that I write for the Mighty, and I am often asked how I got into it. Could you offer our listeners some tips to getting on the site?
Yeah. So as far as our submission process goes, we're trying to make it easier. We used to take them all by email, and that very quickly got very overwhelming. And now we have a system where you can actually submit your story right through our site. And a really easy tip that I can give, and if you're familiar with the site, you may have noticed, I think because and this is, the sad fact is we can't publish every story we receive. We want to get to a point where we can at least use every story. So maybe not every story will be like a packaged article, but maybe it'll go in a forum, or maybe it'll, go in another place on our site. That's like stuff we're figuring out. We don't like telling people that their work can't go on our site. It's just because, very quickly the submissions just grow, and they grow every day. And we are always kind of behind, as you know, Rebecca, wading through these submissions. And so as far as upping your chances that it's something that we're going to get to publish, I would say make sure you have some kind of frame or angle in mind. I would say the biggest reason why we say we're so sorry we can't publish your story right now is because it's what we call like a journey story, and that's when people, and it's great to get this out of you. That's when people, and it's so you'll I know it when I see it. They say, "Hello, my name is Sarah. This is my story," and they kind of take us through their chronological journey. And while, again, it's valuable, while it's like a really important thing to get out, the reason why we don't work with those is because oftentimes, maybe throughout the piece, there'll be different things that people can take away from. But because there's so much going on, someone might read through a whole piece and be like, oh, I actually didn't, this didn't relate to me at all. Or maybe they, relate to one part, but it just was like too messy to get through, so they didn't end up getting to that part. We actually tend to publish stories that aren't necessarily someone's whole journey, but are different moments, snapshots, takeaways. That's what we find. And we're a publication, right? So that's actually, there's two things. It's what we find it's easier to get people to read, to be honest, just because, we're dealing with the internet and posting things on Facebook. It's harder to get someone to read something called My Journey with Depression than it is to get them to read something like The Moment I Realized, I had depression. And it's funny, and we've been accused of, the word clickbait. It's really easy to throw around the word clickbait when it comes to these like titles made for the internet. But the fact is, and this is kind of more from a journalism perspective, the fact is that how people consume media. So you're consuming all this media for free. You're not buying a newspaper. You're not buying a subscription. You're going through your newsfeed, and that's how you're consuming your media. If we titled our stories in a vague kind of general way, people wouldn't read them. And that's kind of like the sad fact that we have to deal with. And again, when our site is more user-friendly, people can go to our site, we probably will be able to publish more general stories with super general titles, because maybe at that point, you'll be following authors, and so you just want to read this person's story because you really like the author. There's a lot of potential for our actual site, but because most of our content is distributed on Facebook and on Twitter, we really stick to stories that kind of have these moments or lessons or relatable aspects. So when people are, again, scrolling through Facebook, they see a Mighty story, they'll know right away if it's something that they're interested in. And also, and it's not so much a bad thing, they'll know if maybe it'll relate to them. And so that's why we prefer the stories that kind of, again, I call it like a frame. It's kind of like I don't know if that word makes sense, but it's like the angle into a story is very important. So to go in, so instead of just thinking of, okay, I'm going to write for the Mighty, I'm going to tell them my whole story, really being kind of thoughtful and being, okay, so for example, I know, Rebecca, you published a piece about like supporting a spouse. So that's amazing. Like thinking about that. So what about my story are people going to hold on to? Is the fact that I have a husband and this is how we communicate about my depression? Is it the fact that the moment I started taking medication was like really important to my story? Like really like thinking about the parts of your story that you want people to know, like what you'd be dying to like tell someone. That's just going to up your chances of getting published, literally simply because we just can't publish everything. And so we tend to prefer the pieces where we feel like people will be able to get into a story and relate to it right away. And that doesn't mean that we're never going to publish these more journey stories. It doesn't mean that there's never going to be a place for that on our site. But for people who are interested in getting published, being thoughtful about, again, your angle, who you're talking to, what advice can you give, what's the specific experience you want to describe, like what's something you experienced that you've never heard you were going to describe it in like this very like specific way. Like that's kind of what I would be thinking about, and then you just submit, and your story gets published, and that's it. But that's kind of the technical ways you go to our website and you submit, but the more advice you answer, I guess, is to be thinking about those specific angles, and that kind of, again, ups your chances of us getting your story on the site.
So kind of a targeted thing. Like this is my journey. I've been through this whole thing, this whole mess, but I'm going to talk about this one specific little thing, and shed light on that, and that's a good way to get it out there.
Yeah, and when you write for us multiple times, you kind of can get like your journey on the site. But again, those snapshots, those little moments, like those tend to not only be like more have easier how to have an impact on people. They also just like they make more sense for how the site is right now. So yeah. What did you say? Is it targeted? That's a good word. I'm always trying to think of like how to explain it. Yeah.
Hey Sarah, so we talked about. With Rudy's help, we talked about what you plan on doing after the Mighty, but what are your future goals with the Mighty as of right now?
Yeah. So my future goals with the Mighty, and this is personal, but also kind of the direction I see the site going. You were very kind to say that we were a good place to go for mental health stories at the beginning. We definitely want to keep being kind of like the premier place people want to tell their stories. So in that sense, we want to grow. We want more writers. We want more viewers. We want to make sure that anyone who might ever want to read a story about mental health or whatever else can access us. So in that way, it just means growing, publishing more stories. That probably won't happen until we kind of get a larger team on the mental health side at least. But, just trying to get more stories out there, more and bigger. It's actually kind of like definitely something that we're trying to do. But also I'm very passionate about making sure that their stories are also very quality, and that we have a lot of diverse perspectives. Something that we've been called, and this is totally fair, is that we have a very mainstream view of how mental health works, right? Which is, again, which is fair, which is fine. It makes sense that we're getting a lot of kind of more stereotypical stories about mental health, and stereotypical makes it sound like a negative thing, but I think that what I want is for there to be different perspectives, right? So I don't want people to see the Mighty as a place where if you only have this like one linear path that like you find your story there. I want people to write for the Mighty who are kind of fall into different, because the mental health world I've learned is just so big and so diverse, and there's so many different people who have so many different opinions about different things, and I want them all to be on the Mighty. I don't want it to. I don't want the Mighty. I don't want the conversation to be homogeneous. I don't want it to be like we're all talking to each other and we're all saying the same thing. I really want it to be that people who have different perspectives feel like they're also welcome. So that's a big thing for me. That's more of a personal thing with the mental health section. I just want to make sure that we're not just growing in quantity, we're also like spreading out and kind of getting different people who kind of maybe feel like they're more on the outskirts, that they have a place where they can share their story. So that's something that I'm really passionate about. And again, as far as how the Mighty's going, more on a technical side, as far as like what our product team is developing, the Mighty, it's going to become more of a place. Right now it's a place where you see it on your Facebook feed, you click on it, and maybe you read one story, maybe you read a few stories, but we want themighty.com to be a place that when you land, you feel like you're part of a community. You feel like you can, ask a question. You feel like you can, maybe you have like a personal journal and you can following like your author page. Like we just want to make it more interactive, so people can connect in even more ways than just writing. Because I think something that I've learned talking to different people is that the storytelling aspect is really important, but it's really not enough. And we don't want to, and it's definitely, we don't want to exclude people who maybe like writing isn't their medium. Maybe they prefer to make videos. Maybe they want to write this like really funky, vague poem that like only people who've been through what they've been through, will get it. Maybe they want to, write more of a journal style that's not necessarily a polished piece. They just want to get it out of their system, and getting feedback's really important to them. We just want to like make it more inclusive to different styles, the way people like express themselves, but also just like more places people can connect. So right now you can connect like our comment section, but that's really it, So that's kind of the direction that the Mighty itself is going, as far as like what the Mighty might look like in a year from now, 2 years from now. Yeah.
Right.
That sounds great. It sounds like it's
I
going to
hope
be
so.
fantastic. Yeah. I think that's definitely a good place to wrap it up.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
You know,
oh my God.
No, you're good.
No. We love hearing your voice. We love everything you're saying. We're just running out of time with you, unfortunately. We'd go 2 hours if we could. So
yeah. So, but it's good to know that the viewpoint is to make the mighty the destination. You know, if you're dealing with mental health issues or you mentioned there's other parts of the site as well. Making that be, in the same breath. It's like, well, I'm going to go to the mighty and see what they say, see if I can find something, see if there's, an answer to my question or whatever.
Yes.
That's a good mindset and a good focus going forward, because that helps us get organized. It gives us a place to land,
Yes.
And that's the goal,
Which is great. So we're excited for that, and definitely looking forward to it. And then maybe I won't have so many people asking me, "Hey, how did you get on there?"
Yeah. Go from that to, "Hey, I'm on there too now," And,
yes, exactly. Exactly. You guys got it.
All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you for having me. It was super pleasant. It was nice to talk to you.
Yeah, it was great talking to you. Really, we respect your viewpoint, and you really you made it easy for us here today.
Yeah. Thanks for that.
Yeah,
I just wouldn't stop talking.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Absolutely fine. So
thank you guys.
Quickly before we let you go, would you like to list off some of your social where people can find you on social media to chat with you?
Yeah. So I'm really only active on Twitter. You can find me on Twitter at Sarah Eliz Tweets. It's SARAHELIZ, and the word tweets. That's the best place to hit me up if anyone's interested. Yeah.
Cool.
Oh, that is so funny, because I always try to remember what your handle is, and I have the hardest time with it.
It's kind of a weird one.
There's a lot of Sarah Schusters on Twitter, I must say.
There are too many Sarahs. There's too many of us in general.
When I look at your name, I always say Sarah Heliz, because
Sarah what? Oh,
Sarah
that's so funny. That's how you say my Twitter name.
Yeah,
that's hilarious. I
try to remember it, so I never.
That's hilarious.
Found a Sarah Liz tweet.
Yeah, my middle name is Elizabeth, because I've always thought that Sarah Elizabeth is just like the most common, just like, white girl from Connecticut name that could ever be. And so just I some of my handles are Sarah Elizabeth. Someone was trying to like embrace that as much as I can.
Sarah, there's nothing wrong with the name Sarah. Embrace it.
Thank you. I will.
All right. Well, thanks again for being on with us today. We've really enjoyed it. And if these changes start coming down the pike for the mighty, and you want to come back on the show and talk about it a little bit, we would be glad to have you back again.
Yeah, I would love that.
So we are going to head out, and on the way out, you can listen to Sam Harris, My Reclamation. And Sarah, hang on the line with us for just a minute.
Okay, I will.
When the river is too wide to cross, and the water is raging too fast, when we see the destination but cannot make our way, we will build a bridge of brotherhood and cross the river at last. When the air is cold and black with hate, and the fog of condemnation burns our ocean keep us hidden from the sun. You can climb upon my shoulders until we reach the skies, for it is not enough to want and need it, and deserving doesn't make it true. I believe hate fails and love prevails. Take a stand, demand justice overdue. Singing, no one can take what is not theirs to give. No one can break you or choose how you live. And I don't need permission to have what is mine. This is my reclamation. This is my right divine. I am weary of hostility, and I am saddened by the ugliness of fear. I'm confounded by morality that builds a bitter wall, but I will bare my heart to you, so all the world will hear that it is not enough to want and need it, just to forward and delete. I believe hate fails and love prevails. Rejoice the choice, take our voices to the street, singing, no one can take what is not theirs to give. No one can break you or choose how you live. And I don't need permission to have what is mine. This is my reclamation. This is my right divine. For all those before us, for those yet to come, for the sons and the daughters of violent waters. No one can take what is not theirs to give. No one can break you or choose how you live. And we will go softly into the night. And this is our reclamation. This is my right. No one can take what is not theirs to give. No one can take it or choose how I live. And I don't need permission to have what is mine. This is my reclamation. This is my declaration to all of the nation. This is my light to shine.
Join us next week as Rebecca and Joe continue to battle the stigma of mental illness. Follow us on Twitter at Voices for Change RJ and on Facebook at Voices for Change 2.0.